Welcome back. After weeks of pro-Hamas terrorist sympathizers terrorizing college campuses, what is the U.S. government pondering in response? Is the FBI using the same tools they used on people wandering around the Capitol on January 6th to round up the terrorists who destroyed property, beat up students, and trespassed? Well, no, of course not. The Biden White House is considering bringing refugees here from Gaza. Yes, that's right. No need to clean the wax out of your ears because you heard me correctly. And what everyone needs to hear is the why. Why would the U.S. government do something so insane? Well, the answer comes from an unlikely source, a young Danish lawyer and commentator, Eva Vlardinger-Brook, who gave a now viral speech about the reality of the migrant replacement strategy by the globalists. She dropped some shocking stats of how native populations across Europe are being overwhelmed, like Rotterdam, that's now 60% migrant, The Hague, 58%, and Brussels is now a whopping 70% migrant. And here she is, drawing the forbidden conclusion from those numbers.
The Great Replacement theory is no longer a theory. It's reality. And what's interesting about replacement is that the establishment will either deny its existence, or when they admit to it, they say that it's a good thing that the native European population is soon no longer a majority on its own continent.
And just like in Europe, they're doing this in America, and either denying its existence or justifying it as good. It's truly evil. Joining us now to break it all down, CEO of Liberty Sentinel Media and author of the book Indoctrinating Our Children to Death, Alex Newman. Thanks so much for being back with us, Alex. It's great to see you.
Great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, Alex, the numbers alone prove that migrant replacement is not theory, but fact. And I think here in the States, they've already moved past the denial stage to trying to justify it as good for America. I think in reality, it's the eventual demise of the U.S., isn't it?
That's absolutely the intended consequence of this. They hope to undermine the nation state. They hope to undermine the Christian culture that has predominated in the West for centuries, if not millennia. And ultimately, they hope to destroy the United States of America as a nation, as a people, and as an ideal. So Europe is a little bit ahead of us. I've had a front row seat to this virtually my whole life. I've lived in 4 different European countries. I've been to probably 45. And when I first moved there, when I was 15 years old, it was normal Europe that we all know. I mean, they had lost their faith. And then in its place comes this rushing tsunami of Islam, mass migration, paganism. So what's happening in Europe is horrific. Been sounding the alarm about this for years. She mentioned some of the cities. Frankfurt, also Germans are in the minority. London, Brits are in the minority. Malmo in Sweden, Swedes are in the minority. Very soon, within a generation, a lot of these countries, the native population will be the minority. And at that point, they wake up and say, hey, why do we even have a country? Let's just be one world citizenry, one world economy, politics, religion, and that's what they're ultimately aiming toward.
Yep, that is the goal indeed, as we've been warning about for quite some time now, especially yourself, Alex. It's just devastating, and as Ava talked about in her speech, they want to justify it by claiming that diversity is our greatest strength, but let's be honest that the reality is that they're just diminishing and ultimately replacing white Christian populations, and that's not very diverse, is it?
Exactly. Just the other day, the First Minister of Scotland, this is a Muslim from Pakistan. This is their equivalent of their Prime Minister. I got a video of him ranting and raving about how he's so upset that he's surrounded by white people in Scotland. Can you imagine a Scottish person going to Pakistan and hollering in Parliament about being surrounded by Pakistanis? It's positively ludicrous. But this is absolutely the agenda. And if it's not stopped, it means the end of everything we hold dear. That much is absolutely clear. So folks, pay attention. They're doing this deliberately. Your family, your church, your community, your country are all in the crosshairs. Now would be a good time to speak out.
Absolutely. Now is indeed the time to add more to that, Alex, to add more fuel to the fire, really, on top of it all. They have the native population paying for the destruction of itself. Let's watch another clip of her viral speech, and then we'll come right back to you.
I know one thing for sure, and that is that if nothing changes, if we don't start to seriously fight for our continent, for our religion, for our people, our countries, then this time that we live in will go down in history as the time in which Western nations no longer had to get invaded by hostile armies in order to be conquered, This time will then go down in history as the period in which the invader was actively invited in by a corrupt elite. And not only did this corrupt elite invite the enemy in, they made the native population pay for it too. Everyone who has eyes can see it. The native, white, Christian European population is being replaced at an ever-accelerating rate.
As you mentioned a moment ago, Alex, we must not accept defeat, but fight back. I know we talk about this frequently on the show, but how do we do that?
Well, there's a lot of ways. I think right now in the United States, we need our state and our local authorities to be taking this deadly threat to our existence very, very seriously. The next phase in this is going to be to unleash chaos, civil unrest, and they hope, the establishment hopes, civil war. We also need to expose their lies, right? And you touched on this a little bit a moment ago. The whole thing is based on lies. I was living in Sweden, which is probably the worst affected country of all the countries in the world during the height of the madness. And first they told these gullible people, hey, this is the humanitarian thing to do. You know, these poor women and children, they need help. There's a war in their country. Let's invite them here. Well, no women and children came hardly. It was mostly fighting age men. So that was a lie. Also, you could have supported 50 times more refugees in Jordan, in Saudi Arabia, in Egypt, in Lebanon, in Turkey, than flying them to Sweden, putting them up in an apartment, giving them a government brainwash education, etc. So the humanitarian excuse falls right out the window, and we need to say that clearly. There's nothing humanitarian about burning down somebody's house and then inviting them into your neighbor's house and saying your neighbor has to pay for it. Then they said it was economic. Well, someone needs to pay the taxes, somebody needs to pay the Social Security, somebody needs to do the jobs that Swedes won't do. Turns out that was a lie, too. A friend of mine, a Swedish-Iranian guy with a PhD from a major university in the United States, did the numbers, found out that there is no point in the future at which we can see that these people will start becoming net positive contributors to the Treasury. So we need to expose the lies. We need to get involved in the political realm. We need to pray that God would deliver us from this, I believe, judgment on us for all of our wickedness. And we must get active. We must protect our families.
Amen, Alex. Amen. I am with you. It is so crucial. Again, I say it all the time. I don't know how much longer we have a country if we don't fight back and resist this now at all costs. But in case you haven't quite connected all the dots yet, here's just another example of how Americans are being replaced and paying for it. Governor Healey in Massachusetts just signed a funding bill to provide up to $426 million to house illegals. Democrats in Massachusetts passed a right to shelter law, which means they must shelter anyone in that state now. I mean, Alex, this is just so blatant, so in our face, but do you think the average person truly understands the depths of this, that this type of stuff is actually happening?
The average American has no clue, and it's very unfortunate. And I will add, too, there's going to be a whole lot more people for Massachusetts to house here because Speaker Mike Johnson, in this latest funding atrocity that they just moved through the House of Representatives, made sure to include billions of dollars for more Biden refugee resettlement. So forget the open border. They're literally picking these people up on airplanes and flying them here. So congratulations, Massachusetts. They're going to have a whole lot more illegal immigrants to house. And this is going to affect every corner of this country, every little rural town. This is coming to a theater near you. Folks, pay attention.
Yeah, it is just absolutely sickening. Alex, I guess the replacement even involves AI now, too, because Ukraine has unveiled its AI foreign minister. And she also just so happens to be black. Even, I guess, white AI characters are now being replaced. If we can pull up an image of that just to show the viewers, that is rather comical. What do you think, Alex?
No surprise. And that's, I mean, we are being replaced in so many ways, right? Very soon here, the vast majority of people who work on a computer are going to be out of a job. And, you know, they're telling us we need all this additional labor to do the jobs that Americans won't do. Meanwhile, they're also telling us, prepare to lose your job, slave, because your job is no longer needed. They're going to try to put us on a universal basic income if civilization survives that long. Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, pay attention.
Yes, pay attention indeed. Well, Alex, thank you so much for all the great work that you do to shed light on all of this. And thank you so much for joining us today. It's always great catching up with you.
It's an honor and a pleasure. Thank you, Alison.
Take care.
For all our viewers asking where One America News is heading in the future, we would like to introduce you to OAN Live. OAN Live is the best way to stay up to date on all of the hard-hitting, straight-shooting, national and international headlines. And the best part is, OAN Live is only $4.99 per month. All the credible, honest, unbiased reporting One America News offers at a fraction of the cost of cable. Just go to OANN.com to easily sign up for OAN Live and stay informed.